Almost 30 years ago, I think everybody in Edlington knows the dramatic announcement Yorkshire Main Colliery was closed. So as an heritage group, we thought it would be really an appropriate time to have this event. We've also spent about 12-18 months working on the banner, timeline of Colliery. It's David Douglas, very well known to Edlington. Always been a sort of close comrade of ours. So I'm going to pass you to David and we'll update the event as it goes on because it's quite busy and there's quite a few things for us to do. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting us again. Actually, Frank said, I'd prefer if you didn't do your political bit, you did a cultural bit instead. But since the cultural bit involved singing a song and reading from my book, and I know how bitterly disappointed Harry will be, I decided it wasn't really practical here. So I'm going to confine myself to doing a few words instead. I'd first of all like to congratulate them Irish dancers. Performing that kind of dancing anywhere is difficult, but on the grass it's almost impossible. But the thing I'd like to say about that is, anybody who knows out about Irish dancing, and I was brought up with it, is that it's moved on and it's adapted, and we've now seen that they've got hand movements. So the long lost book of Irish dance hand movements have been discovered, and we see that the culture's moved on. And that's a lesson for us in a way, that although they've closed the last of the bloody pits, or they will do at Christmas, our culture has to remain. Is this on? Our culture has to remain.
We've all heard it.
Our culture has to move on and adapt, and that's why I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm very pleased to see the lads from Hatfield here. You know that we took the one of the Durham Miners banners over with the lads from Hatfield Pit over to Belfast for May Day, where we went down the storm. I wouldn't say we went down the bomb, we went down the storm. Over in Belfast and down in Derry. And we were there because we wanted to return solidarity with people who'd shown solidarity to us. And in the middle of our strike in '84, a lot of people who'd condemned people in Ireland for fighting for their civil rights and for their national rights began to realise what that struggle was about and identify with it. And when New Banner we took down to the Pride Parade in London, not because many of us are gay, but because the people from the Gays and Lesbian Society and community in Britain had given unstinted support, particularly to the Hatfield miners and to our communities, and we wanted to return that solidarity by being there, and we led the miners section of the parade. And you know, one of the first people who fell over himself to come and walk with us was Jeremy Corbyn. And I don't want to be too controversial, except to say that Corbyn was somebody who stood with us right through that 12-month, and indeed for the whole of his life has stood with working class people. And I'm proud to be associated with Jeremy Corbyn, even though I regard the Labour Party as a little bit right-wing for my particular political traditions. But the thing that really reminds me of this strike was the way in which Jeremy's been attacked on the television and on the radio, and every political toad that's ever crawled out from under a stone has went to condemn Jeremy for the things he believes in. My God, they're screaming on the television. The socialists joining the Labour Party. Well, I agree, it's quite shocking because we're not used to them being in there. And actually somebody in the parliamentary party advocating socialism is somewhat of an exception, so I can understand why they're quite surprised about that. But we shouldn't be too surprised, really. So, I'd like to say, you know, we've just seen the closure of the last pit in Doncaster, Hatfield last month. And while it's true to say that all of the closures, and the vast majority of them since '85, have been cynical and political, the closure of Hatfield is perhaps the most cynical and ideologically driven of the lot. Here we've got a bloody pit with 1,000 years of coal now. I know everybody says that, but the facts are Hatfield is sitting on 1,000 years of coal. We've got all of Markham's coal. We've got all of Askin's coal. We've got coal. There was plans in 1987 to sink a 2 million ton capacity shaft at Thorn, and they started to make it. And there was long-term plans to sink a 5 million ton capacity shaft at Goole. That's how far the reserve stretches, right out to the coast. And we've got coal from there up to the Smith and Pollitt Reserve, which borders Kellenly and up into Selby. So there's no problem that there's coal there. The safest coal mine in the world. What did they do? 2 weeks into office, they doubled the tax on coal. Doubled the tax on coal, which meant that 75% of the cost of coal went in government taxes. And as I said at Hatfield, if they put 75% tax on cigarettes, it's because they don't want you to smoke. And if they put 75% tax on coal, the lesson's quite clear. We are going to drive you out of existence. The irony of it being, of course, we are importing 40 million tonnes of coal into Britain, and 40% of British energy is still coal, but we don't produce it. We would have still survived. We would have still survived at Hatfield, but they decided to turn the knife even more, because it's supposed to be a fossil fuel tax. You're being taxed for producing CO2. But they didn't put the tax on when you burn it, they put the tax on when you buy it, before you produce the CO2, which meant that Drax would have to be paying double tax on coal that wasn't going to burn for 6 months, 8 months, or a year's time. So they decided to burn the stocks they've got. They've got millions of tons of stocks at Drax, so they can burn that, produce the CO2, and not pay the tax, instead of using Hatfield coal. Of course, that market will come back in 6 months' time, but they're filling the shafts now to make sure we can't come back again. That is an ideological decision which is made purely and simply to get rid of the miners' union and the influence we had. And I'm quite pleased that they've found some new gas reserves in the North Sea. That's very canny. Of course, they've found them because the government give them millions and millions of pounds in subsidies to go and look for it and exploit it. And of course, it produces CO2. Now, there's a remedy for CO2. We had plans for a clean coal power station at Hatfield, which should have been on stream last year, and for which we had money from the EU, and the government was supposed to put £1 billion in. They withdrew the £1 billion from us and let the scheme fall dead. Now the pit's closed, guess what? They're going to build a clean coal power station, except it'll burn gas. So they found £1 billion to build it on Hatfield site, which is where the coal was supposed to come out into that power station, and they'll burn North Sea gas in it as well. So that's just how cynical they are. If they think that a few hundred miners are going to ride from the gates of hell and storm Parliament, they must be madder than we think they are. But that's the motivation for it. But we will always remember what we stood for and who we are. So events like this are very, very important, that we remember who we are and we continue to be who we are. So thank you very much for bringing me here, and thanks very much for listening to us. And the next thing we're going to do is move up to the top of the field there and unveil the timeline and the new piece of artwork. Thank you very much.